Commander Jake Sullivan sat in the cold metal chair and looked around the huge room filled with strange creatures from across the galaxy. The air smelled like chemicals and ozone from all the different life support systems keeping the alien delegates alive. Some breathed poison gas, while others needed freezing cold temperatures to survive. The humans were the only ones who could breathe normal air without special equipment. The negotiating table was made of some kind of crystal that glowed with soft blue light. It stretched across the center of the room like a frozen lake. Around it sat the most powerful beings in the galaxy. Each one represented an empire that controlled hundreds of star systems and billions of lives. The humans controlled exactly 3 small worlds that most aliens considered worthless rocks floating in empty space. Captain Lisa Monroe sat next to Jake and tried to keep her face calm as the aliens talked about humans like they were not even in the room. Her hands were folded on the table, but Jake could see her knuckles turning white from squeezing too hard. This was their 6th month of trying to get the aliens to agree to let humans expand to new worlds. Every single meeting had been the same story of rejection and mockery. The Vorthan Empire delegate was a giant insect creature with 4 arms and eyes like black marbles. His name was Ambassador Zethkar, and he made clicking sounds when he laughed. Right now he was laughing a lot as he read the human proposal on his glowing screen. His translator device turned his clicks into words that everyone could understand. The humans want 17 star systems. Zethkar clicked and buzzed with amusement. Maybe they should learn to take care of the 3 little planets they already have before asking for more. Their technology is so primitive, they still use chemical rockets to get into space around their own world. The other aliens joined in with their own versions of laughter. The crystalline hierarchy delegate made musical chiming sounds that hurt human ears. The hegemony representative just sat there with what might have been a smile on his strange blue face. Even the smaller empires that usually stayed quiet were making jokes about human ambition. Jake had been a soldier for 20 years before becoming a diplomat. He knew what it felt like to be surrounded by enemies, but this was worse. At least in combat, the enemy tried to kill you quickly. Here they just wanted to make humans feel small and stupid for hours at a time. Admiral John Carter watched from the observation deck above the main floor. He was not officially part of the negotiation team, but everyone knew he spoke for Earth's military forces. His job was to stay quiet and look serious while the diplomats did their work. But Jake could see the anger in the old man's eyes as he listened to the aliens dismiss humanity, like they were children asking adults for permission to play outside. Perhaps the humans do not understand how the galaxy works, said the hegemony delegate in a voice like grinding stone. Territory belongs to those strong enough to take it and keep it. The human fleet has maybe 200 ships? We have over 50,000 vessels in our navy alone. The Vorthan Empire has even more. Why would we give valuable star systems to a species that cannot even defend what they already have? Captain Monroe finally spoke up in her calm, diplomatic voice. We are not asking you to give us anything. We found these systems ourselves through our own exploration. They are uninhabited and unclaimed. We simply want recognition of our right to settle there peacefully. This made the aliens laugh even harder. Zethkar's mandibles clicked so fast his translator could barely keep up. Uninhabited means nothing if you cannot defend your claim. Any of our empires could take those worlds from you in a single day. Then what would be the point of recognizing your settlements? The crystalline delegate added its musical voice to the conversation. The humans seem to think the galaxy runs on their primitive concepts of law and fairness. Here strength is the only law that matters. If you want those worlds, then take them by force and see how long you can hold them against real military powers. Jake watched Lisa's face stay perfectly calm, but he knew her well enough to see the fire building behind her eyes. She had been Earth's best negotiator for 15 years and had never walked away from a table without some kind of agreement. But these aliens were not interested in any deal that treated humans as equals. The meeting dragged on for 3 more hours with the same pattern repeating over and over. Humans would make a reasonable proposal, and aliens would reject it while explaining why humans were too weak and stupid to deserve respect. They talked about human technology like it was barely better than stone tools. They discussed human military strength like it was a joke not worth considering. What the aliens did not know was that Admiral Carter had been recording everything through hidden devices that human technology specialists had planted around the room months ago. They also did not know that human linguists had been studying alien languages for years and could understand most of what the delegates said to each other when they thought the translators were turned off. During a break in the official talks, Jake overheard Zethkar talking to the hegemony delegate in their own languages. They were discussing how long it would take to divide the 17 systems humans wanted among their own empires. Devorthan wanted the worlds with heavy metals for mining, while the hegemony preferred the ones with good farming conditions. They were already planning to split up human territory like it was a birthday cake. Even worse, they were talking about what to do with humanity itself. Some aliens thought humans should be allowed to exist as a client species serving one of the major empires. Others suggested that human aggression and unpredictability made them too dangerous to keep around. The conversation made Jake's blood run cold as he realized these creatures were casually discussing the extinction of his entire species. When the official meeting resumed, the aliens became even more insulting. They suggested that Earth should be grateful just to be allowed to attend these talks. They said humans were lucky that the major empires had not decided to take the Sol system for themselves. The crystalline delegate even offered to let humans serve as workers in their mining operations if they gave up all claims to independent expansion. Captain Monroe sat through it all with the patience of a saint. She answered every insult with polite diplomatic language. She responded to every threat with careful legal arguments about interstellar law. She tried every negotiating technique in the book to find some common ground for agreement. Finally, the hegemony delegate made the comment that broke her diplomatic composure. The humans should understand their place in the natural order. Some species are born to rule, while others are born to serve. Humans are clearly in the second category and should learn to accept their fate with grace. Lisa Monroe stood up slowly from her chair and looked around the room at all the alien faces staring at her with amusement and contempt. She gathered her papers and electronic devices with calm, deliberate movements. Then she spoke in a voice that carried clearly to every corner of the huge chamber. Gentlemen, ladies, and various other entities, it appears we have nothing further to discuss. The aliens barely looked up as the human delegation packed their materials and walked toward the exit. Jake could hear them already starting to argue about which empire would get the best systems from the human wish list. Admiral Carter met them at the door with an expression that could have melted steel as they boarded their small transport ship for the journey back to Earth. Jake realized that something fundamental had just changed. Humanity had tried the diplomatic approach and been rejected with contempt and mockery. Now they would have to find another way to secure their future among the stars. The aliens had made their choice, and soon they would learn what happened when you pushed humans too far. 6 months had passed since the human delegation walked out of the galactic negotiations, and Earth had gone strangely quiet. The major alien empires barely noticed because they were too busy fighting over the 17 star systems that humans had wanted. The Vorthan Empire claimed 8 systems, while the hegemony took 6, and the crystalline hierarchy grabbed the remaining 3. None of them bothered to actually send ships to occupy these worlds, because they all assumed the systems would stay empty until they were ready to develop them. This was their first major mistake. The aliens thought human silence meant human surrender, but they could not have been more wrong. On Earth and in the other human colonies, the biggest military buildup in history was happening at a speed that would have shocked the galaxy if they had been paying attention. Every nation on Earth had put aside old conflicts to work together on what they simply called the Project. Dr. Amy Rodriguez stood in her laboratory, deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, and examined pieces of alien technology that human intelligence agents had stolen over the past several years. The fragments came from crashed ships, abandoned equipment, and broken weapons that various alien species had left behind during their own conflicts. Most galactic powers threw away damaged technology because it was cheaper to build new equipment and repair old devices. Humans saw these fragments differently. Amy and her team of scientists had been reverse engineering alien technology with the focused intensity that only humans seemed capable of achieving. They worked 18-hour days for months at a time, trying to understand how alien energy shields worked and why their weapons were so much more powerful than human designs. The breakthrough came when Amy realized that alien technology was actually less advanced than human engineering in many important ways. The aliens had developed energy weapons and faster than light, traveled thousands of years ago, and then stopped innovating because their technology was good enough to maintain their empires. They had become comfortable and lazy, while humans were still desperate and hungry for advancement. Their shields work by deflecting energy attacks, but they have almost no protection against solid projectiles moving at high speeds. Amy explained to General Mike Thompson during one of their weekly briefings. They have not fought against kinetic weapons for so long that they forgot how to defend against them. It would be like us forgetting how to stop arrows because we got used to fighting with laser guns. General Thompson was in charge of coordinating Earth's military expansion, and he understood immediately what Amy was telling him. Human weapons that fired solid bullets and missiles would go right through alien energy shields like they were not even there. This meant that human ships could be designed around kinetic weapons that would be devastating against alien fleets. The general shared this information with Admiral Carter, who was overseeing the construction of humanity's new space Navy. Within weeks, every human shipyard was working day and night to build vessels designed specifically for fighting aliens who had never faced kinetic weapons in modern combat. Captain Steve Walker was put in charge of building the first human shipyard outside the Sol system. His job was to find a location where humans could construct warships without being detected by alien intelligence networks. Steve chose a dead star system 40 light years from Earth that contained nothing but asteroids and cosmic dust. The system was so empty and boring that no alien empire had ever bothered to survey it properly. Steve and his engineering teams spent 4 months hollowing out a massive asteroid and turning it into a secret construction facility. The asteroid looked exactly the same from the outside, but inside it contained the most advanced shipbuilding equipment that human technology could produce. Automated factories worked around the clock, building weapons and ship components, while human crews assembled them into fighting vessels. The new human warships were designed by engineer Kelly Brooks, who had studied every alien battle recording that human intelligence could find. Kelly noticed that alien fleets fought according to ancient traditions that emphasized honor and single combat between individual ships. Alien captains would challenge each other to formal duels while their fleets watched and waited for the outcome. Kelly designed human ships to fight in coordinated groups with overlapping fields of fire and mutual support. Where alien vessels relied on thick energy shields and precision, energy weapons human ships carried heavy armor plating and multiple redundant systems that could keep fighting even after taking massive damage. Every human warship was built to engage multiple alien vessels at the same time and win through superior tactics and firepower. The humans also understood something about warfare that the aliens had forgotten during their centuries of ritualized combat. War was not about honor or fair fighting. War was about destroying your enemy as quickly and efficiently as possible, using every advantage you could find. Human military doctrine focused on overwhelming force applied at the right time and place to achieve decisive victory, while the alien empires continued their slow expansion and political maneuvering. Humans were building the largest military force in their history. Every human colony contributed resources and personnel to the project. Mars became a giant weapons factory, while the asteroid belt was turned into a maze of hidden military bases and supply depots. The aliens completely missed what was happening because their intelligence networks were focused on watching each other, instead of paying attention to the supposedly harmless humans. Alien spies reported that human space traffic had decreased and that Earth seemed to be turning inward after their diplomatic failure. This made the alien governments think that humans had given up on expansion and were accepting their role as a minor species. This was exactly what the humans wanted the aliens to believe. Admiral Carter had learned from studying alien psychology that the major empires only paid serious attention to threats that looked like traditional military challenges. As long as humans appeared weak and defeated, the aliens would ignore them until it was too late. Captain Dan Foster led one of the many human exploration teams that were secretly mapping the galaxy and identifying strategic targets for future operations. His ship looked like a normal trading vessel from the outside, but it carried the most advanced sensors and stealth equipment that human engineers could build. Dan and teams like his spent months at a time gathering intelligence on alien military bases, fleet movements, and defensive positions. The information they collected painted a clear picture of galactic military strength and weaknesses. The alien empires had thousands of ships, but most of them were scattered across hundreds of star systems on routine patrol duties. Their major fleet concentrations were designed to intimidate each other rather than fight a coordinated enemy that could strike multiple targets simultaneously. Even more important, the aliens had no experience fighting a species that understood modern combined arms warfare. Their military traditions came from an era when space battles were fought between individual ships using weapons that had not changed in thousands of years. They had never faced an enemy that used integrated battle groups with specialized ships working together to achieve tactical objectives. Planners saw immediately that alien fleets were vulnerable to the kind of coordinated attacks that humans had been developing since their first world wars. While aliens thought in terms of individual ship duels, humans thought in terms of fleet actions designed to destroy entire enemy formations in the shortest possible time. The final piece of the project was establishing a network of hidden supply bases throughout the galaxy. Human logistics experts had studied how alien empires maintained their far-flung territories and noticed that most species relied on a few major supply hubs to support their military operations. This made alien fleets vulnerable to supply line attacks that could cripple entire sectors without fighting major battles. Humans built their supply network differently, using small hidden bases scattered throughout empty star systems that alien surveys had missed or ignored. Each base was designed to support human operations independently for months at a time. This meant that human fleets could operate deep in alien territory without depending on supply lines that enemies could easily cut. As the months passed, human preparations accelerated while alien attention remained focused on their own internal politics and territorial disputes. The Vorthan Empire was fighting a border war with the crystalline hierarchy over mining rights, while the hegemony was dealing with rebellions in their outer territories. None of them noticed that humans had disappeared from galactic communications and were no longer sending trade missions to alien worlds. By the time human preparations were complete, the aliens had forgotten that humans even existed as a potential threat. This would prove to be their final and most costly mistake, when human fleets finally revealed themselves and showed the galaxy what happened when you pushed humanity too far. The attack began on a Tuesday morning when the Vorthen patrol fleet guarding the Kepler 438 system detected massive gravitational distortions appearing at the edge of their sensor range. Admiral Krexther was drinking his morning stimulant beverage when his tactical officer reported that 50 unknown ships had just dropped out of hyperspace and were moving toward their position at combat speed. Krexther had been patrolling the frontier for 30 years and had never seen anything like the sensor readings his crew was showing him. The approaching ships were smaller than traditional alien warships, but they moved with perfect coordination, and their energy signatures were completely unfamiliar. More disturbing was the fact that they were broadcasting on human communication frequencies. "This is Admiral Krexther of the Vorthen Third Fleet," he transmitted on all standard diplomatic channels. "Unknown vessels, you're entering claimed territory of the Vorthen Empire. Identify yourselves and state your intentions, or face immediate military response." The reply came back in perfect Vorthen language, spoken by a human voice that sounded calm and professional. "Admiral Krexther, this is Commander Rick Davis of the Earth Space Forces. You are occupying star systems that were offered to humanity in good faith during diplomatic negotiations. We have come to collect what is rightfully ours." Krexther felt his breathing tubes constrict with surprise and fear. The humans were supposed to be a weak species that had slunk back to their home worlds after failing at diplomacy. Their tiny fleet was no threat to any major power in the galaxy. Yet here were 50 human warships moving toward his position like they owned the entire star system. The Vorthen fleet consisted of 12 heavy cruisers and 30 escort vessels. That should have been more than enough to destroy any human force. Krexther had fought in dozens of battles against other alien species and knew that 42 ships was a respectable force that could handle most threats. He immediately ordered his fleet into standard battle formation and began charging his energy weapons. "Human Commander," Krexther broadcast with the confidence of someone who had never lost a space battle, "you are outnumbered and outgunned. Surrender now, and your crews will be treated according to standard prisoner protocols. Continue your approach, and we will destroy your entire fleet." Commander Rick Davis responded without hesitation. "Admiral, surrender was an option 6 months ago when we asked politely for recognition of our territorial claims. That time has passed." The human ships suddenly accelerated to attack speed and spread out into a formation that Krexther had never seen before. Instead of the traditional line of battle that all civilized species used, the humans arranged themselves in multiple, overlapping groups that could support each other while attacking from different angles. It was a completely alien way of fighting that violated every principle of honorable space combat. Krexther ordered his fleet to open fire when the humans came within range of his energy weapons. Brilliant beams of concentrated plasma lanced out from Vorthen gun batteries and struck the leading human ships with enough force to vaporize normal vessels. The Admiral expected to see human ships exploding in balls of superheated gas, but instead he watched in horror as the energy beams simply bounced off thick armor plating that seemed designed specifically to resist energy weapons. The human ships barely slowed down as Vorthen weapons fire splashed harmlessly against their hulls. Then they opened fire with weapons that Krexther had never encountered in 3 decades of space warfare. Instead of energy beams, the humans used kinetic weapons that fired solid projectiles at incredible speeds. Tungsten slugs the size of telephone poles punched through Vorthen energy shields like they were not even there and smashed into ship hulls with devastating effect. The first Vorthen cruiser died in less than 10 seconds as human railgun fire tore through its armor and detonated the ship's power core. The explosion lit up space for thousands of kilometers and sent debris spinning in all directions. Before Krexther could process what had happened. Two more of his ships were breaking apart under the relentless hammering of human kinetic weapons. All ships concentrate fire on the lead human vessel, Krexther ordered desperately. Focus everything we have on destroying their command ship. 30 Vorthan ships turned their weapons on Commander Davis's flagship and poured energy fire into it with enough concentrated power to melt a small asteroid. The human ship staggered under the assault, and its armor began to glow red-hot from the thermal stress, but it did not explode or retreat. Instead, it kept firing its own weapons, while smaller human ships moved to protect it from further attacks. Krexther realized with growing terror that human ships were built to completely different design principles than any other vessels in the galaxy. Where alien ships relied on energy shields and precision weapons, the humans had chosen thick armor, an overwhelming firepower that could function even after taking massive damage. Their ships could absorb punishment that would destroy any other vessel and keep fighting like wounded animals that refused to die. The battle turned into a massacre, as human ships systematically destroyed the Vorthan fleet using tactics that no alien military had ever developed. Instead of engaging in traditional ship-to-ship duels, the humans concentrated their fire on individual targets and destroyed them one at a time with coordinated attacks. They used their superior mobility to avoid Vorthan weapons while staying close enough to ensure that their kinetic projectiles hit with maximum effect. Admiral Krexther watched his fleet die around him as human ships tore through Vorthan formations like sharks attacking a school of fish. His tactical officers reported that human weapons were punching through their energy shields without any resistance, and that their own energy weapons were having almost no effect on human armor. It was like fighting an enemy that had been specifically designed to counter every advantage that Vorthan technology possessed. "Admiral, we have lost 18 ships, and the humans have taken no significant damage," his tactical officer reported with panic in his voice. "Our weapons cannot penetrate their armor, and their guns are destroying us faster than we can maneuver." Krexther made the hardest decision of his military career and ordered his remaining ships to retreat. The 12 vessels that survived the encounter limped away from the battlefield, while human ships let them go without pursuit. Commander Davis broadcast a final message as the Vorthan fleet fled toward the edge of the star system. "Tell your superiors that humanity is no longer asking for permission. These systems now belong to Earth and will be defended by human military forces. Any attempt to reclaim them will be met with appropriate force." What Krexther did not know was that identical battles were taking place simultaneously in 16 other star systems across the galaxy. Human fleets commanded by officers like Captain Lisa Park and Captain Dan Foster were seizing every world that humanity had originally requested through diplomatic channels. The speed and coordination of the attacks caught every alien empire completely off guard. The human strategy was brilliantly simple and utterly ruthless. Instead of building up slowly and giving the aliens time to respond, humanity had prepared in secret for months and then struck everywhere at once. Alien commanders who expected to face desperate human raids instead found themselves fighting coordinated military operations carried out by professional soldiers using superior technology and tactics. Captain Lisa Park led the assault on the Kepler 442 system, where the original diplomatic negotiations had taken place. Her fleet of 40 ships overwhelmed the Crystalline Hierarchy Patrol Force in less than 20 minutes, using the same combination of kinetic weapons and coordinated tactics that had proven so effective against the Jews. Vorthans, the crystal beings, had never encountered an enemy that could punch through their energy barriers and had no defense against human railgun fire. Captain Dan Foster attacked 3 systems simultaneously using smaller human forces that relied on speed and surprise to destroy alien defenders before they could call for reinforcements. His ships would drop out of hyperspace fire, a devastating barrage of missiles and kinetic projectiles and then jump to the next target before alien reinforcements could arrive. By the time enemy fleets responded to his attacks, Foster had already moved on to terrorize defenders in completely different star systems. The most shocking aspect of the human offensive was not just its success, but the complete tactical superiority that human forces demonstrated over supposedly advanced alien militaries. Galactic powers that had controlled space for thousands of years found themselves helpless against an enemy that fought according to principles they could not understand or counter. Within 72 hours, humanity controlled 17 star systems, had destroyed over 300 alien vessels, and had established orbital defense platforms around each conquered world. Human engineering teams immediately began building permanent military bases, while colonization ships that had been waiting in secret locations started moving toward their new homes. The message that humanity sent to the galaxy was clear and unmistakable. Humans were no longer the weak supplicants who had begged for recognition at the negotiating table. They had become a military power that could take what they wanted by force and defend it against any challenge. The emergency session of the Galactic Council lasted for 3 days as representatives from 12 major empires argued about how to respond to the human attacks. For the first time in over 2 centuries, every alien power agreed on something. The humans had to be destroyed completely before their military expansion could threaten the established order of galactic civilization. Fleet Admiral Zara Queen of the Hegemony stood before the assembled delegates and outlined the largest military operation in galactic history. Her plan was simple and brutal. A combined fleet of nearly 2,000 warships from every major empire would attack the Sol system and destroy Earth, along with every human colony ship and military base. Without their home world, humans would have no choice but to surrender their conquered territories. The human threat must be eliminated at its source, Zara Quinn declared in her grinding stone voice. We allowed this primitive species too much freedom, and they have used our tolerance against us. Now we will show them what happens when inferior beings challenge their superiors. The Vorthan Empire contributed 400 ships to the Armada, while the Crystalline Hierarchy provided 300 of their most advanced vessels. Even smaller powers that normally stayed neutral in galactic conflicts sent warships to join the assault force. Everyone understood that if humans were allowed to keep their conquered systems, it would encourage other species to challenge the established powers through military force. Admiral Krexter volunteered to serve under Zara Queen despite his humiliating defeat at Kepler 438. He wanted revenge against the humans who had destroyed most of his fleet and made him look like a fool in front of his superiors. The surviving officers from other human attacks felt the same way and begged for the chance to redeem themselves in the coming battle. The assembled fleet was truly magnificent to behold. Ships from dozens of different species filled space around the assembly point, like a metallic constellation of death and destruction. Energy weapons powerful enough to crack planets charged up in perfect synchronization, while shields that could deflect asteroid impacts glowed with defensive power. No military force in recorded history had ever been larger or more technologically advanced. Intelligence reports indicated that humans had fewer than 300 warships total, including the vessels they had used to conquer the 17 systems. Even if every human ship was as effective as the battle suggested, they would still be outnumbered nearly 7-1 by the greatest fleet ever assembled. The alien commanders expected to crush human resistance in a matter of hours. Zara Queen led the Armada toward Sol System with the confidence of someone who had never lost a major battle. Her tactical computers calculated that human defenses would collapse within 6 hours of contact, and that Earth itself could be bombed into submission before the end of the first day. The humans would learn that challenging the galactic order carried a price that no species could afford to pay. What the aliens found when they reached the outer edge of Sol System was not the desperate last stand they expected. Instead of hiding behind Earth's defenses or trying to negotiate for mercy, the entire human battle fleet waited for them in open space near Jupiter's orbit. Admiral Carter had positioned his ships in a formation that looked almost casual compared to the rigid battle lines of the alien armada. Admiral Carter, Sarah Queen broadcast on all frequencies with supreme confidence in her voice. You are outnumbered 6-1 by the combined might of galactic civilization. Surrender now, and your species will be allowed to exist as servants to the major empires. Continue this foolish resistance, and humanity will be wiped from the galaxy forever. Admiral. Carter's response was broadcast back with the calm tone of someone who had been expecting this moment for months. Admiral, you have made the same mistake twice. First, you assumed we were weak because we were new to galactic politics. Now you assume we are stupid because we appear to be outnumbered. The alien fleet moved into attack formation with the overwhelming confidence that came from superior numbers and thousands of years of military tradition. Each empire's ships took their assigned positions in the battle line, while energy weapons charged up for the devastating opening barrage that would shatter human resistance. Zara Queen had fought dozens of space battles and knew that numerical superiority almost always guaranteed victory. Admiral Carter waited until the alien fleet was fully committed to their attack approach before revealing the trap he had been preparing. Human ships that had been hiding in Jupiter's shadow and throughout the asteroid belt suddenly appeared on alien sensors as their stealth systems deactivated. The 300 ships the aliens expected to fight became 600 vessels positioned to attack from multiple directions simultaneously. Even more shocking was the revelation that human ships had been using Jupiter's massive gravity well as a weapon system. Thousands of kinetic torpedoes that had been placed in carefully calculated orbits around the giant planet came screaming toward the alien fleet at incredible speeds. The projectiles had been accelerated by Jupiter's gravity until they were moving fast, enough to punch through any known defense system. All ships evasive maneuvers, Zara Queen ordered as her tactical officers reported incoming missiles from directions that should have been empty space. How did they hide so many ships from our sensors? The answer was that humans had developed stealth technology specifically designed to fool alien detection systems, while the major empires had been fighting each other using the same basic technologies for centuries. Humans had been innovating and adapting their equipment to exploit weaknesses in galactic military doctrine. The Battle of Sol turned into the largest space engagement in galactic history as nearly 2,500 warships fought for control of humanity's home system. Human ships used Jupiter's gravity to slingshot torpedo spreads while deploying nuclear mines throughout the asteroid belt that had been prepared months in advance. Every piece of space debris became a potential weapon as human engineers turned the entire solar system into a massive defensive fortification. Captain Beth Morgan commanded the destroyer Vigilant and demonstrated the kind of tactical thinking that made human officers so dangerous to fight against. When her ship was surrounded by 5 alien cruisers, she used a damaged asteroid as cover while calling in support from 2 other human vessels. The 3 ships coordinated their fire to destroy the alien formation in less than 4 minutes using crossfire patterns that no single ship could have survived. Human tactical coordination is unlike anything we have encountered, Admiral Krexter reported to Zara Queen as his ships struggled to engage enemies that seemed to anticipate every move. They fight as integrated units rather than individual vessels, and their weapons are designed to penetrate our defenses completely. The aliens discovered that their numerical advantage meant nothing when human ships could destroy alien vessels faster than the enemy could bring their superior numbers to bear. Human battle groups would concentrate their fire on single targets and eliminate them completely before moving on to the next victim. Alien formations that should have overwhelmed human positions found themselves being picked apart by coordinated attacks they could not counter. Captain Morgan's destroyer took critical damage when three crystalline ships managed to focus their energy weapons on her vessel simultaneously. Her armor was melting, and her life support systems were failing, but she refused to retreat or surrender. Instead, she ordered her crew to prepare for a ramming attack that would take out the enemy flagship. "This is Captain Morgan to all human vessels," she broadcast on the tactical frequency as her ship accelerated toward the hegemony command ship. "We don't fight for honor or territory. We fight to win." Her suicide run destroyed Zeraqueen's flagship and took out 2 escort vessels in the explosion. The loss of their supreme commander threw the alien fleet into confusion as different empire commanders tried to take control of the battle. Human forces immediately exploited this command breakdown by launching coordinated attacks against enemy formations that were no longer working together effectively. The battle raged for 8 hours. As human and alien ships fought across millions of cubic kilometers of space, debris from destroyed vessels created navigation hazards while the brilliant flashes of exploding reactors lit up the darkness like artificial stars. Both sides took heavy casualties, but the aliens were losing ships at a much faster rate than Earth. They could afford dot as the alien fleet began to retreat toward the edge of the solar system. Admiral Carter broadcast a final message that would be remembered throughout galactic history. "Today you learned that humanity will not be intimidated, negotiated with, or controlled by anyone. We tried asking nicely for what we needed, and you responded with contempt and mockery. Now you know what happens when you push humans too far." When the smoke cleared, fewer than 200 alien ships escaped from Sol system out of the nearly 2,000 that had attacked. The Galactic Council's military might lay in ruins around Jupiter, while humanity's message echoed across the galaxy. The age of alien dominance was ending, and the age of human expansion had begun with a victory that no one would ever forget. 1 year after humans had walked away from the negotiating table, the galaxy had been forced to accept a new reality that terrified every established power. Humanity now controlled 43 star systems and was expanding at a rate that made alien governments panic about their own survival. Human colonies were being established faster than alien intelligence services could track them, and human fleets patrolled space lanes with the confidence of apex predators who had earned their territory through superior firepower. The Galactic Council had been reduced to a shadow of its former power after losing most of their combined fleet at the Battle of Sol. Individual empires that had once commanded hundreds of star systems now struggled to maintain control over their remaining territories as rebellions broke out across the galaxy. Species that had been oppressed for centuries saw humanity's success and decided that they too could challenge their alien overlords through military force. Ambassador Kretal of the Vorthan Empire arrived at Earth's new orbital diplomatic station, with a delegation that included representatives from every major alien power. The massive space station orbited Earth like a small moon and bristled with defensive weapons that could destroy entire fleets. Human engineers had built it as a symbol of their new status in galactic politics, and every alien who visited understood the message it conveyed. The ambassador was old, even by Vorthan standards, and his exoskeleton showed scars from decades of military service. He had fought in dozens of battles before becoming a diplomat and understood better than most how completely the balance of power had shifted in humanity's favor. The terms he carried from the remnants of the Galactic Council would have been unthinkable 2 years earlier. President Catherine Webb had been elected on Earth, specifically to deal with humanity's new role as a galactic power. She was a former military officer who understood both diplomacy and warfare well enough to know when each was appropriate. Her first meeting with the alien delegation took place in a conference room that looked out over Earth's blue oceans and white clouds through massive transparent aluminum windows. Ambassador Kree Tao, President Webb said, as the alien delegation settled into their specialized seating arrangements. I understand you have brought an offer from what remains of the Galactic Council. The old Vorthan's mandibles clicked nervously as he activated his translator device and began to speak. President Webb, the surviving members of the Council, wish to formally recognize all human territorial claims and offer humanity a permanent seat on the Council with full voting rights. We also propose comprehensive trade agreements that would give human merchants access to established galactic markets. President Webb listened politely to the complete proposal, which included everything that humanity had originally requested through diplomatic channels, plus additional concessions that reflected the aliens' desperation to avoid further human expansion. The aliens were offering to treat humans as equals and partners in galactic governance after spending months dismissing them as primitive upstarts who deserve no respect. Ambassador, President Webb replied after the alien delegation had finished presenting their terms. You seem to be under the impression that we are still interested in joining your council. The silence that followed this statement stretched for several minutes as the alien delegates tried to process what they had just heard. They had assumed that humans wanted the same things they had requested during the original negotiations. The possibility that humanity might have moved beyond those goals had never occurred to them. Kreetal's voice carried a note of panic when he finally responded. President Webb, surely humanity desires recognition from the established galactic powers. These terms represent everything your species originally sought through diplomatic means. President Webb stood up and walked to the window that showed Earth turning slowly beneath them. Human space traffic filled the orbital approaches as colony ships prepared for departure to newly claimed worlds while military vessels patrolled the approaches to the solar system. The view demonstrated humanity's transformation from desperate supplicants to confident conquerors in less than 2 years. Ambassador, 2 years ago, we came to you as equals seeking reasonable accommodation for human expansion into empty star systems. You responded by treating us like children, asking adults for permission to play outside. You mocked our technology, dismissed our military capabilities, and discussed the extinction of our species like it was a minor policy decision. The alien delegates shifted uncomfortably in their seats as President Webb continued her explanation. They had all been present during those original negotiations and remembered how casually they had insulted and threatened the human representatives. At the time, it had seemed natural and appropriate to put the upstart humans in their place through superior attitude and veiled threats. Now you return offering us exactly what we asked for 2 years ago, as if nothing has changed, President. Webb continued, but everything has changed. We no longer need your permission to expand our territory. We no longer require your approval to establish colonies. We no longer seek membership in organizations that exist only to limit our growth and potential. Admiral Carter had been watching the proceedings from the observation area above the main conference room. His presence served as a reminder of human military power and the consequences of underestimating humanity's willingness to use force when necessary. The old admiral commanded humanity's expanded fleet from his new headquarters at Alpha Centauri, and his ships patrolled space lanes throughout human territory with absolute authority. Captain Tony Martinez was establishing humanity's 50th colony on a world that had once been claimed by the crystalline hierarchy. His colonization team was setting up permanent settlements, while human engineering crews built orbital defense platforms and military bases. The world would become part of humanity's growing empire within months, and there was nothing the previous claimants could do to stop the process. President Webb, Ambassador Kreetal said desperately, surely your species does not intend to conquer the entire galaxy through military force. The established powers can offer humanity partnership and cooperation rather than endless warfare. President. Webb turned back to face the alien delegation with an expression that could have frozen liquid nitrogen. Ambassador, you still don't understand what happened when you rejected our diplomatic overtures. You didn't just refuse to negotiate with us. You taught us that the galaxy respects only strength and responds only to force. The truth was that humanity had learned lessons from their diplomatic failure that would reshape galactic civilization for centuries to come. The aliens had shown humans that peaceful coexistence was impossible with species that viewed cooperation as weakness and compromise as surrender. Now humanity would expand according to its own interests without regard for alien approval or consent. We tried asking nicely for what we needed, President Webb continued. We offered to work within existing galactic institutions and respect established territorial claims. You responded by laughing at us and planning to divide our requested systems among yourselves like pieces of a birthday cake. Admiral Carter's fleet had grown to over 800 vessels in the year. Since the Battle of Seoul, and new ships were being commissioned every month from human shipyards scattered throughout claimed territory. Human military doctrine had evolved beyond simple conquest to include long-term occupation and defense of captured systems. Every human world was becoming a fortress that could resist alien counterattacks indefinitely. The expansion was accelerating as human colonies provided resources and personnel for further military buildup. Each new system added industrial capacity that supported the construction of additional ships and weapons. The aliens were discovering that humans could sustain military growth at a rate that no other species had ever achieved. The galaxy operates according to rules that you taught us, President Webb explained to the increasingly desperate alien delegates. Territory belongs to those strong enough to take it and keep it. Respect goes to species that can enforce their will through superior military power. We are simply following the lessons you provided during our original negotiations. Captain Dan Foster commanded one of the human exploration fleets that were pushing deeper into previously unexplored regions of the galaxy. His ships were discovering new worlds and establishing human claims faster than alien governments could respond. The frontier was expanding in all directions as humanity spread across space like a wildfire that nothing could contain. President Webb, please reconsider, Cretal begged with obvious desperation in his voice. The galaxy needs stability and cooperation between species. Endless expansion and conquest will lead only to chaos and destruction. President Webb sat back down at the conference table and looked directly at each alien delegate before responding. Ambassador, the galaxy had stability when you controlled it through superior military force. Now humanity controls expanding territory through the same methods you used for thousands of years. The only difference is that we are more efficient at conquest than you ever were. The meeting ended with the alien delegation departing empty-handed and thoroughly demoralized.